Hello, Warhammer 40k players and players of the Imperial Guard or Astra Militarum. This video is actually part 2 of my after action report for the Scorched Earth Open, which was the first GT that I have ever been to, and probably the last GT I'll go to in Warhammer 40k 10th edition. So, my first video, part one, was, just my general thoughts about the venue, the people I met, some of the armies that I've seen. And this part two is going to be a more in-depth deep dive into the individual games that I played. So, the list that I played is shown here. I played Grizzled Company Detachment, and you can see a more in-depth analysis of my list building in my previous video, but essentially I have a Lord Solar command blob, a Rogal Dorn tank commander with Aquilon Eye enhancement. That's the one that gives the bonus AP order. I have a Rogal Dorn battle tank with the blank. I have two Leman Russ exterminators with the multi-meltas and last cannon loadouts, and I brought those to add AP with the Withering Hail ability. I have one Hellhound with the Inferno Cannon and Bolter, and that's used to strip cover. And I have three Chimeras with two Heavy Bolters each, 2 units of 10 Catachan Jungle Fighters, and 2 units of 3 Ogryns. I have Gaunt's Ghosts, 5 Ratlings, and a Tech Priest Engine Seer. So anyway, let's move on to the after action report. So my first game was against Jason McKenzie. He was a previous GT winner. And in this game, he went 97, I went 54, and it was Mission E, Take and Hold, Hammer and Anvil on GW Terrain Layout 8, and I went first. So my opponent played the Tau Empire, and he was playing the Retaliation Cadre Detachment, and he had 1,980 points in his list. Very briefly, we're going to go over said list. He had Commander Farsight, Commander in Enforcer Battlesuit with Starflare Ignition System. He had two Broadside Battlesuits. They have railguns. They were sitting in the corner a lot of the game. He had three Crisis Fire Knife Battlesuits, and he had three Crisis Starside battlesuits. He had a Ghost Kill battlesuit. That's the one with Infiltrator and Lone Op and Stealth, I believe. Ghost Kills are really good. He had a Hammerhead gunship, 10 Kroot Carnivores to Sticky his home. He had 10 Pathfinders, Piranhas, which have Scout, 3 Riptides. You might have heard Triptide on YouTube videos. That's what he was playing. And he had 2 units of 5 stealth battlesuits. They are generally dedicated spotters, and he had 1 unit of 5 Vespid Stingwings. And those are the little flying creatures that up E downy and do your secondary objectives for you. So in this game, I went first. The cards I pulled was Overwhelming Force and Extend Battle Lines. So when you look at this map, this is my first turn after movement. You can see that Jason was really good at hiding, and it was very difficult, or actually, I think it was completely impossible for me to get overwhelming force. You see, the Hammerhead and the Kroot Carnivores are completely behind that ruin. I don't have any line of sight to shoot at it turn one, so I can't kill those units. And the middle objective is empty, and the top objective is empty, and the bottom objective is also empty. So overwhelming force is impossible, and I had to end up throwing away that card. And then I pulled extend battle lines, which I did score. That's a pretty easy secondary to score on turn one. Now, my mistake already, as you can see, is I'm going first. I don't need to push all my stuff out so aggressively. And you'll see later why in the next photo, but you can see that I have a Chimera and a Hellhound exposed on the top. I have a Chimera with the Ogryns exposed on the bottom, and you can see my infantry, my Ratlings, and my Catachans, which I was proxying Valhallans for, right in the middle behind the Blue Ruin. And then I pushed out my Rogal Dorn my regular Rogal Dorn battle tank. It's a light green one at the bottom. I pushed that out a little bit too much, I realized. And then the opponent's turn came around, and as expected, he wiped out my Chimera on the top. He wiped out the Hellhound. He wiped out. He didn't wipe out the Chimera in the bottom. If you look at where his hammerhead is on the middle right side of the board, you can see that I charged my Chimera in. I landed quite a big charge, and I landed that. But the opponent, he scored area denial and mark for death. So what I marked was my Rogal Dorn battle tank and my command blob in the back. And I believe I marked my Rogal Dorn commander, which on the first turn should have been completely hidden. So the opponent, he took out my Hellhound, and then he took area denial. He scored both of those secondaries, and he pretty much destroyed my regular Rogal Dorn, the one with the blank, from 18 to 0 on the first turn. He had, I believe, he had a Riptide, a Ghost Keel, maybe, and he had a Hammerhead firing at it. He put a lot into it, but the Rogal Dorn wasn't as durable as I thought. And then the next round, I ended up pulling Cleanse and Defend Stronghold. I don't remember exactly what I cleanse with, but I believe I put these ratlings right on the middle objective to cleanse with them, and maybe I had Gaunt's Ghosts or some Ogryns on the top objective I cleansed. But essentially, what happened was I overextended. He took out a lot of tanks. I tried to do what I could, knowing that Tau is not very good in melee. I charged everything in. I was fighting some stealth battle suits near the bottom with my Ogryns, and then I was fighting against a ghost kill with some Ogryns in the top. But I lost way too many assets on turn one, and I ended up bringing a Leman Russ exterminator out of reserve to shoot at his hammerhead. But I got picked up the next round by one of his Riptides, and then I pushed out my infantry onto objectives to try to, to contest, but they just got wiped out. And eventually I was pretty much almost tabled. You could see in this photo with the chess clock right in the middle that I had to push my Rogal Dorn commander. Lord Solar Leontis' squad is starting to move up, and my Leman Russ exterminator that was near the middle, he had to go and try to contest the bottom objective because I had no more assets down there. And you could see that the enemy still has a unit of uppy downy crisis suits. He still has a couple riptide. He has all his riptides left. He has a broadside, and his crew carnivores are starting to come out. So it's just overwhelming, what Tau can do, and I was not prepared for that. So as you can see from this battle report, I did try to hold on as best as I could, and the opponent, he just maxed out second he maxed out primaries starting from turn 3 onwards. And the reason is because I was pretty much mostly tabled by turn 3 onwards. So yeah, I had, you could see I scored on round 2, I scored 15 on primary, and I was scoring maximum cleanse. Whatever I could score, I was just scoring maximum on. So I guess I did get defense stronghold. So I got cleanse, defense stronghold. I was scoring really well, but the reason I was scoring really well was because I overcommitted in the beginning. Do remember that this is Warhammer 40K is a 5-round game. And once we go into the next game, after the next game, I'm gonna tell you a little bit about how time works at tournaments. But, this game pretty much ended well on time. It was very cool to play against Retaliation Cadre for the first time, and it was definitely a kind of learning experience where, at least against Tau and other gunline armies that hit really hard, um, probably shouldn't push everything out so aggressively. If it were maybe Blood Angels or Space Wolves, this kind of strategy might have worked. But Tau, they have a lot of hard-hitting assets that they can mobilize on turn one. So against Tau in particular, as a guard player, my only advice to you would be play a little cagey. If you got to score objectives, just put the bare minimum out. Don't even try to like the enemy's natural expansion objective. I didn't have to put the Chimera there on my first battle round. I didn't have to put the Chimera with Ogryns there. To be honest, I should have just kept my Rogal Dorn back and maybe kept that Chimera with Ogryns a little bit more back, you know? Maybe put the Chimera a little bit closer to where my Dorn was and have my Dorn about 5, 6 inches back, you know, so that he has enough movement to get onto the objective next turn if needed, but he's far enough back that the enemy has to expose in weird ways. You know, this is like pretty much practically out in the open. And so I used my Rogal Dorn commander well. My regular Dorn, that was a big mess up. And you can see at the top objective that I had a Chimera and I also had a Hellhound. I did not have to push the Hellhound out. I could have hid the Hellhound behind that ruin on the top and maybe I'd have a couple more assets going into round two and it wouldn't have been as big of a loss. So, pretty much that's a lesson I learned from my first game at the GT. On round two, I played against Raul Hernandez, playing Imperial Knights, Questor's Companions. His list had 1,995 points, and he went first. Uh, I also lost this game. The opponent got 44 points, and I got 41. It was a very close game. So his list was five bigs: Canis Rex, an Atrapos, two Lancers, and a Crusader. So, in this game, as you can see from this first photo, he had some decent strategy, but the biggest mistake, I think, is if you look at my deployment, I am pretty well hidden. At least I'm out of range that I can't get hit too hard. I made sure on that. And before we get further, this was mission N. The primary mission was hidden supplies. So that's why you see four objective markers in the midboard. And the deployment was Crucible of Battle. So that's the diagonal deployment on GW layout 8. And you can see that the opponent, he pushed out his Lancer very aggressively onto the top left objective. And he also had the Lancer on the bottom right objective. He completely hid his Crusader and he was hiding his Canis Rex, which it's hard to see, but you can see him behind the Atrapos. And the Atrapos is the one towing the ruin. So he pushed the Lancer very aggressively, and then he kind of staged up the Atrapos to charge the turn after that. And why this was a mistake is because my entire army has line of sight on that Lancer. Like practically my entire army can have line of sight turn one. And it went as expected. I completely deleted that Lancer. So this was at the around the end of my turn. This photo, you can see that at the bottom, the ratlings are pretty much preventing the Lancer from getting through the wall. And then you have a line of Ogryns behind, and then you have a Chimera, and then I have my Rogal Dorn commander. So I am essentially blocking off where the Lancer can land. So the idea is the best he can do is go into some ratlings. Or he can walk all the way around and go into the Ogryns. And knowing this, later on in the game, his Lancer just sat there. Um, Instead of going all out. And you can see the top objective is completely empty because um I deleted that Lancer and then I put a few wounds on the Atrapos because I can see it and I can't really shoot at anything else. So I killed the Lancer and then whatever else I had, I just put into the Atrapos. And you can see here that on my first turn, I only really contest the top left objective that's closer to the middle. I have a Chimera on it just to put 2 OC, draw the enemy out. My Rogal Dorn and my Leman Russ is up top. And the Atrapos, he can definitely get into those heavier tanks and do a lot of damage, but I want the opponent to start thinking about the objective game. And so I wanted him to go into my Chimera instead, which is why I put the Chimera on the objective. You can see here that my Rogal Dorn commander is very well protected. My Hellhound is kind of sitting back. He has cover. And again, I banked my infantry right near the middle here so that later in the game they can get onto objectives and be relevant. I did have one Leman Russ exterminator in reserve, so I wouldn't get traffic jammed too hard. And the opponent, he decided to take a +2 movement since he was running two Lancers and Canis. He decided to take +2 movement first, and I don't remember what he went for his deed, but he did get the +2 inches to movement, and then later on he did reroll ones, the old Lalo the Tyrant ability for his quality. So we go on to the next round, and as expected, the Lancer, he stickies the objective and he just sits there, and the Atrapos pushes up forward. Now, why on the if on the top right you'll see Canis, and the reason why he's there is I think I pulled behind enemy lines or something like that, and I put my Gaunt's Ghost there. So Canis, instead of moving forward to support the Atropos, he was forced to move backwards to deal with my Gaunt's Ghost. And I lost my whole unit. And to be honest, I think that was a good play because uh Canis, I want him far away as possible. I want to spread his knights out and pick them off one at a time. And he kind of just did that. Just pushed his knights one at a time. His Crusader finally started to tow an objective so he could start shooting at some of my infantry units. And so this is his move. And then he actually ended up destroying my Rogal Dorn up there. He actually ended up destroying it instead of going into the Chimera. And so at at the charge phase, this is the status. So he did score primary for the bottom right that his Lancer was just parked on, which, it's a decent primary play. But the top, he's contesting the top, and he's pretty much letting me have that one objective I have my Chimera on, right? So after my first failure from the first round, I'm like, I'm gonna play a little bit cagey, try to destroy more of his army, and then swing later on in the game. But you see that chess clock, it wasn't working right, and so yeah, time was an issue here, as I'll tell you a little bit more later. And then next round, I delete his Atropos. It was already wounded from my first round of shooting, so I deleted the Atropos. The Chimera now that took that objective and scored it, he moves on such that he can hold two objectives with one hull. And the spacing is such that you can do that. So now he's holding two objectives with one hull. My Rogal Dorn, he moves up, and I think I used the Rogal Dorn commander to delete that Atropos. I think that's what I did. And then that Rogal Dorn commander is kind of staged. He's moving up north because I know that bottom right objective I can't go through walls. I think he killed my ratlings, and so I can't really go through walls and contest that objective. Plus, he has 5 OC on it. That's how the sticky stratagem works in Questora's Companion. So I couldn't steal it with Ratlings. I'd have to use Battle Line or just otherwise just put an exorbitant amount of OC on it. I finally brought in my Exterminator into my deployment zone, and I think I used that to also fire on the Atropos. And so on his turn, he brought out his Lancer finally and then started attacking that Chimera to prevent it from getting onto objective. And then Canis starts creeping out again. His Crusader just sits there. And then next round, or my next turn, the Rogal Dorn pops out yet again and he knocks out that Lancer. I have an Exterminator up top sitting on the objective. I have another Exterminator on that ruin right there. He's white, so it's kind of hard to see, but he's a little bit to the bottom and left of my green Exterminator. And so I have my exterminators now holding off the top left objective, and the enemy really has no chance of taking it off of me at this point. He's lost assets. He's lost a lot of assets. And my Hellhound, my Chimera, I'm just pushing onto objectives, right? And Lord Solar, he stickies the objective. He comes out. The enemy can't up B Downy. He has nothing in reserve. So, it's go time now. His Canis, I'll delete it. And the Crusader, I'm not really worried about a Knight Crusader shooting at my tanks. I'll just pop smoke. I still have my Engine Seer buff around, I think. And so after that round, um, Canis does actually come out and he knocks out the top two tanks, I believe, yes. And then his Crusader comes out to contest the objective. And I didn't really get to play a lot of my turn, even though I went second. And so, pretty much it was, hey, uh, you know, you're out of time, so talk out the rest. So I didn't even get to roll attacks or anything. And my Rogal Commander was at full health, so I just kind of parked it on both objectives, and I gave it duty and honor. Would I normally in a 5 round game have given it duty and honor? No. If we had more time, definitely would have tried to delete that. Canis was on partial wounds as well, so I would definitely have tried to delete Canis and delete the Crusader. This was round three, I believe, is all we got to, and so round four and round five, I would have just tabled him and then swung in one. That's why I was a little bit bummed that I lost this round, but I'm not gonna be all mad about it. It's my first GT. I'm not expecting to win the event anyway. I'm not expecting to even place at the event. My goal going into this GT, like my expectation is Grizzled Company is really strong. It has an average 55% win rate. I consider myself uh tactically a decent player, but I do make mistakes and blunders sometimes, and there are a few factions that I haven't played into, but I have a lot of experience into Knights, and the way he was playing, I believe that had we gotten to round five, I would have won this. But at a GT, guess what? It doesn't matter. When they'll give you warnings, like a 15-minute warning and such, and then they'll say dice down. At dice down, you got to talk out the rest. You have like 5 minutes to talk out the rest of the battle. Maybe you could roll a couple battle shocks to see what can happen, but essentially dice down's dice down. So the fact that I didn't even get my turn, that's a real bummer. And so from this game, I realized that if you're playing a newer opponent and you don't have chess clocks or your chess clock's broken, then you really need to push. You can't be cagey. Like the first battle round, I should have been more cagey. This game, I should have just shoved. I should have shoved because of the way he was playing. I should have shoved with everything. My Lord Solar, he should have come out early. He everything should have just straight shoved. And I lost by 3 points. If I had shoved, I could probably have pulled off enough primary difference that I may have won by 3 points. You don't know. But you could see here that last battle round, I barely got my turn, so I was like, all right, cool. I'm gonna duty and honor, and I'm gonna flip that bottom right objective back to me and unsticky it. And I'm just my Lord Solar. He's just gonna park in the middle over across two objectives and just freaking score. But I didn't get to score the points. You see. So if you're playing against a newer opponent, you know your opponent's new, then you need to shove. That's the one lesson that I really learned. Like you need to shove because I didn't have a chess clock. Didn't think I would need one. I don't really know how to use one. And so yeah, that's a lesson. Like if you're playing newer players, freaking shove, try to get that primary differential. And I heard that about a decade ago, this strategy was used where you just shove onto primary. But that nowadays people aren't using it as much. But if you do lose your first round, typically you're going to get paired into weaker opponents. And typically that means at least a couple of your games, you're going to be playing brand new opponents who also don't have chess clocks. And so you need to be playing a lot faster, a lot more aggressively, and you just need to get points differential. That way, when it's dice down, it doesn't matter. I win. And this lesson definitely helped me win my third game, which we're going to go into now. This game was against Tyler McCormick, and I won 79 versus 40. Um, he was playing Space Wolf, Saga of the Great Wolf, and he had exactly 2,000 points. In this game, I went first. And so his list was Arjak Rockfist, Bjorn the Fell-Handed. He's a dreadnought. He had a lieutenant with combi weapon, Logan Grimnar, Wolfguard battle leader with an enhancement, Skjald's foretelling. He had one unit of 5 intercessors, one unit of 5 Fenrisian wolves, a Land Raider Redeemer, which he had his head takers inside, I believe. He had a Redemptor Dreadnought, two 5-man scout squads, two 3-man Thunderwolf cavalry squads, one unit of 6 head takers, and 2 units of 5 Wolfguard Terminators. And the Terminators were led by Arjak Rockfist and Logan Grimnar. So the salient points of this Space Wolves list is that Logan Grimnar has a Vectora. So all your stratagems cost extra CP. So Lord Solar is kind of nice to kind of counteract that if you can't kill Logan Grimnar. And Wolfguard Terminators, they're not the easiest thing to take out. They're not invincible, but they are also they usually come down later in the game. So Logan Grimnar, he's a really good pick. They nerfed Thunderwolf cavalry. So they used to be really good. They could be led by some of the special characters, but now they can't. And the Rogal Dorn actually shreds Thunderwolf cavalry pretty easily. And so does the Leman Russ Exterminator with bonus AP. So the biggest threat in his list is probably Logan Grimnar with the Wolfguard Terminators and Bjorn the Fell-Handed, if he gets into melee with you, he hits pretty hard. He only has a one-shot ranged weapon though. It's a pretty big ranged weapon, but it's only one shot. And the Tech Priest Engine Seer giving a 4-up invo really helps protect against Bjorn's one attack. And so going into this battle, you could see that this is my turn one. I shoved. He's a melee pressure army. He's not Tau. And so pretty much I just shoved everything that I could. You could see the in the middle, right in front of the ruins, I got the ratlings, and then I have a chimera, and then I have the regular Dorn, and then my Rogal Dorn commander sticking his barrel out, and on the top objective I have a chimera with Ogryns inside. I'm screening the back line because he has Terminators in reserve. And then you see in the middle I have a Hellhound. He's fully within that ruin. So he's projecting his area denial, He's controlling board space by threatening flamers onto weak things like scouts. And then I have my infantry right behind that ruin, just like the other game, staged up, ready to OC dump when I need to, which is gonna be sooner than later. Why? Because my opponent also did not have a chess clock this game, but I played 2 games and at this point, I pretty much know no chess clock, newer player. I asked, hey, are you experienced? He's like, no, this is my first GT. All right, I need a shove and get that primary differential before they say dice down. And I'm also going first. So generally, whether it's timed or not, if you're going first, you need to be a little bit more, you need to apply a little bit more pressure. And so you could see that my chimeras are moving out a little more aggressively than before. Just like the first game that I played, my Dorn just pushes out. I do stage a little bit and play cagey, but I have a Rogal Dorn commander up there with his barrel sticking out, getting ready to Overwatch. I have a Hellhound here getting ready to Overwatch. So I'm shoving, but I'm not like shoving in a stupid way. I have screens, I have layers, I have waves, and I'm set up for Overwatch. So, it's like an intelligent way to shove. And then you can see the opponent's first turn. He takes his natural, and I believe he pulled a secondary objective that he had to be in the middle of the board or on an objective or something. I don't remember, but right in the middle, that's a unit of scouts that he pushed out. Great, more stuff for me to kill, right? And then he pushed out his Fenrisian wolves on the right side, completely exposed. And then his Thunder Wolves start moving up very aggressively. And this is his movement phase. And in the fight phase, his Thunderwolves have made it into my two tanks. But my Leman Russ is on objective, contesting that objective. He does actually deny it from me, I believe, that first turn. But his Thunderwolves are up there, and then his Fenrisian Wolves, they just charge right through the middle and actually make it into my Hellhound. And he had a unit of scouts, I believe, at the bottom. I'm not sure. I think they definitely were scouts. And then he my intent was to put ratlings uh more than an inch away from the wall, so like slightly more, so more than 25 millimeters, under 32 millimeters, which is the Space Marine bases. And he's like, I want to charge you. I'm like, no, you can't fight me through the wall, but what you can do is you can just charge around the bottom of the wall. And that's exactly what he did. So either way, he got what he wanted, and he killed off. I think one of my ratlings survived that battle round, but his idea is same as me. I gotta shove. I gotta start tying things up, preventing him from getting onto objectives. He has a Redemptor staged up and ready to come out next turn. He has Bjorn in the bottom, and in this detachment, you can walk Bjorn through walls. So he has his Land Raider with the head takers ready to. They're staged. That was his third wave, I believe. And so this is his move. And then let's see. The next turn, I had to repair my Hellhound. I think the Land Raider shot his last cannons at the Hellhound, almost took it out. I think he was on a few wounds, I think. And so the Engine Seer gave him a 4-up and then repaired him. And then I pretty much moved forward with my Rogal Dorn, and I actually fell back with my Rogal Dorn commander. Reason I fell back was so that the two Leman Russ exterminators in the middle, they could go and freely shoot at those Thunderwolves to clear them off. And after my movement phase, I put my Catachans that I banked behind the ruin. I put them to contest that middle objective. So you can see in this game, I'm being a hell of a lot more aggressive. You could see where my battle line is, and you could see the opponent's battle line. I am really going aggressive. And then now, in the next photo, you could see that I actually did end up almost wiping the Thunderwolf squad, but they don't have a lot of OC. And so my Ogryns came out, and they're out OCing him on that objective. He was in the middle of moving, I think. And he shoved too. He brought down Logan Grimnar right at the bottom. He pushed Bjorn through the wall. And I brought down my Gaunt's Ghost at the bottom there to start shooting at stuff. And yeah, I'm just holding my line and trying to secure my top objective and the middle as well. You can see I have Ogryns in the middle and I have the Catachans. I am just shoving. And my Catachans, my other unit is still sitting behind the ruin, ready to OC dump again once that Catachan squad dies. And so, um, at the end of the opponent's turn, he completely destroyed my Rogal Dorn. He pretty much cleared out that whole bottom. That bottom, he completely cleared out, and he's ready to shove on my home. He's ready to shove. And so on my turn, I pretty much pack Lord Solar and start shoving him out into the midboard. My Hellhound, it survives. Like this thing is super durable. And so my Hellhound is still alive. And my Rogal Dorn, once again, he pushes out. I think he got tagged by some Terminators, but he definitely has that top objective and a firing lane towards the bottom of the map. And both my Leman Russ Exterminators are here. And you can see I lost my Catachan and my other unit of Catachan I pushed to the bottom to prevent him from pushing through and getting onto my home objective. So they're just what people would call a speed bump. And then so after my turn, I wipe out a bunch of his units. And And yeah, there's just Logan and his full squad is alive, putting that Vectora. He pushes his Land Raider onto that middle objective, and my Hellhound is still alive somehow. And yeah, Bjorn, he gets into my Catachans, and then this is about, all we had time for in the game. And apparently, in my previous turns, I had pulled enough. I had pulled enough ahead that I eventually won the game. Because I think we got to round three maybe or round four, but we definitely I definitely had about a 20 points lead um going into the last battle round that we played. And so it's a good tactic. Oh, you can see in this last photo here on the top right. I think what I did was I put Gaunt's ghost back there. I picked him up because he wasn't able to get in to them. He destroyed my Rogal Dorn and I just picked him up. So I put my Gaunt's ghost there and I said, hey, I intend to burn that objective. And so that I already had a 20 points lead. And that's how eventually I pulled that much of a lead. I think I had over 30 points at the end of the game because of that. And my screening prevented the enemy from getting to my home objective. So this was Scorched Earth, I believe. Round three was it was Scorched Earth on Tipping Point, GW Terrain Layout 8. And so it was very important for me to save my Gaunt's Ghost so that at the end of the game, when his home objective was completely free, I could just drop in the ghost, burn pretty quick, and get my 10 points. So I don't think I even needed those points, but it was something that I did to pull forward even further. Because you could see how the opponent is placed. He's in no place to burn my home objective, and he probably could have burned the bottom right, maybe the middle objective if he held on to it, but you know, that may have been unlikely with my Rogal Dorn up there and my two exterminators still alive. It's a lot of firepower that could go into that Land Raider. And so that was battle round three, or the third game, I mean. And then that was the end of the day. And then the next day we reconvened with three more games. Round four, I played against Thomas Ritzy and I won 94 to 44. He was playing Chaos Space Marines Soulforge Warpack, and he was playing exactly 2,000 points. So one thing I'm gonna say is that the previous lists, they were very competitive lists. They're things that most people bring, and they're generally considered competitively viable. Soulforge Warpack is one of those detachments that are just not that good. It's more of a fluffy pick, and so this was to be expected. And in this game, I went first on Terraform on GW Terrain Layout 1 with the Crucible of Battle deployment. And the opponent, he played a typical Soulforge Warpack. That is the Demon Engine detachment with Vashtor the Archithane as one of the salient features of the list. So he had Lord Discordant on a Hellstalker, which he reserved, and it had the enhancement Forge's Blessing. He had a Sorcerer and Terminator armor with Soul Harvester. He had Vashtor the Archithane, which is pretty much an auto include in this detachment. He had the Warpsmith, which I believe is like the Chaos version of a Tech Priest, and he had the enhancement Tempting Addendum. He had 10 Cultists, something cheap. He had one unit of 3 Chaos Bikers, a Chaos Vindicator, 2 Forge Fiends, each of them with 3 Ectoplasmas, and he had a Hellbrute with a twin autocannon. He had a Molar Fiend, which he reserved, and he had 2 units of 5 Raptors, which are like the Jump Pack Intercessors, kind of Chaos. And then he had 3 Venom Crawlers, which are the round Demon Engine things. And so I went first, and here you can see how I moved. Um, we didn't have a chest clock, and he was also playing a detachment which doesn't have too much like heavy anti-tank shooting. So I was pretty confident, and this one I shoved even more aggressively than the previous game. I shoved. all three of my chimeras onto the objective turn one. This is how I played against Tau my first round and lost horribly. But the difference is that Tau hits a lot harder than Chaos Space Marines. And I went first, and I could actually, we determined that I do have line of sight on my first turn to the venom crawlers in the opponent's deployment zone. Now, inside the opponent's castle, essentially, he pretty much just hacked a bunch of units in there. And then, but Vashtor, he has Lone Op, and so he deployed Vashtor a little bit more openly um, within range of the Venom Crawlers. But here's the thing. Once the Venom Crawlers are destroyed, Vashtor loses Lone Op. And so I just aggressively shoved up. I did keep my Rogal Dorn commander back a little bit because he could just push out his Vindicator, and if he rolls high enough on his rolls, he could possibly take out a Rogal Dorn commander. So I was a little bit cagey about that. And you can see that behind that ruin, near between the top and middle objectives, I stashed all my infantry there. And the reason why is, again, they can just walk through the wall and get to the top objective and OC dump. They can walk through the wall onto the middle objective and OC dump. I hid my Hellhound because I don't need to expose my Hellhound. I'm exposing my Chimeras because they're cheap, and when they get shot off the board, the contents, namely the Ogryns, can spill out onto objectives. So my first turn, I played very aggressively, and whatever I could shoot at, I shot at, which were the Venom Crawlers. And I actually ended up destroying one or two of them. And then on the opponent's turn, his Vindicator comes out. He pokes one of his Forge Fiends out and completely hides the other one. He keeps his jet bikes back, and he pushes out aggressively with Vashtor the Archiphane, and he pretty much says, I'm gonna secure my natural expansion objective with these raptors. But in the movement phase, you see, the issue is that I have units and transports on the middle and top and the bottom objective. And so, since he's a more shooting oriented army, and he's a lot more, he's like 80, I would say not 80-20, maybe 70-30. 70% shooting, 30% melee, and his melee units are in reserve. And so, if he destroys my top chimera, I'm still going to hold that objective. If he destroys my middle chimera, I'm still going to hold that objective. If he destroys my bottom chimera, he might flip. He already out OCs me right here. But the Rogal's gonna come out and he's gonna go full send. The Leman Russ Exterminator is gonna come out in full send. So I'm really not worried here. So on his turn, he actually takes out my chimera. And like I said, the Ogryns get out. I still have OC on the objective. So when it comes back to my turn and they're not battle shocked, I'm scoring points right on that middle objective. And it is the terraform mission. Um, you could see that I made a slight mistake on the bottom left. On the bottom left, I did not sticky my home objective for terraform. But you can't terraform your home objective either. So I completely forgot about that. What I should have done was sticky that objective, and then my first turn, then move into the corner to screen. That's what I should have done. Another thing is the Mauler Fiend and the Lord Discordant are on bigger bases, so I don't have to screen as I don't have to be so careful with my screening. I don't have to be 9 inches away because the base has to fit, and I could be 11 inches away and I'd still be okay. So that's one mistake I made. So when it comes back to my turn, I full send. I send my Chimera out, send my Leman Russ Exterminator out. My Rogal Dorn comes out and peeks his barrel over the ruins so he can start shooting at things. The Hellhound peeks out. The Ogryns move up. And the reason why I moved the Ogryns up was that there was a little gap in the terrain. And since the terrain feature was considered as one piece, even though there are two little neoprene mats, um, I he put his Chaos Raptors on the ruin, which means I could just draw line of sight. Since he's touching the ruin, I can actually shoot at his unit legally, and that's why my Ogryns kind of moved up so that they could shoot through the window at his Raptors. And up top, um, I push my Chimera out to the front part of the objective, and I have my Leman Russ also pretty much just hull blocking that objective. And my Rogal Dorn comes out on the back part of the objective. So my natural is it's castled. There's no way he's taking it away from me. The only thing he can really contest is the middle and the bottom. And currently, I'm holding middle pretty well. The reason I pushed out my Chimera or my Hellhound a little bit is so that I can start shooting at his Forge Fiend. And if his Forge Fiend takes out my Ogryns, then I could push my Hellhound up and take the spot and keep applying waves of OC onto that middle objective. So next, what happens is that I end up taking out his Venom Crawler. I end up taking out one unit of Raptors, and his Forge Fiend is still alive, of course. Um, but I believe he did take a little bit of damage. And then I just charged in with my tanks in the bottom. Sure, Vashtor is gonna destroy them, but I just charged in. Now the idea of charging in is that I shot at Vashtor, but failed to destroy him. And so I wanted to tank shock with my Leman Russ Exterminator because a toughness 11 tank shock's not that bad. And I also wanted to out OC him to deny him primary on that objective when it came over to his turn. Another thing is that in the fight phase, Vashtor, I believe, might have gone into the Chimera. Or I might have tagged the Raptors, they might have gone into the Chimera. But anyway, it died in the fight phase, and so my battle line infantry that have even more OC were able to get on the objective. And since they have a lot more bodies, they serve as another screen, so it's harder for the opponent to get into my Rogal Dorn that's down there. And then here, you could see that on his turn, um, he finally brings out his bikers. Big mistake. He should have brought the bikers out earlier. And you'll see from my last game, that the Dark Angel's opponent, he plays the bikes a little bit better. But yeah, he should have been a lot more aggressive. And he destroys my Leman Russ up top with his Vindicator, and in the middle, he does clear out my Ogryns, and his Lord Discordant comes out and makes a charge into my Chimera. And he's starting to push now because he's a bit behind. His Mauler Fiend uh comes out on the bottom right corner. It's not a great place to put the Mauler Fiend, but the whole board is pretty much screened out. And so he pushed it, he destroyed my Chimera and my Leman Russ on the bottom right flank. And he pushed his Vashtor into my Rogal Commander, but or my regular Dorn, I mean, but my regular Dorn survived on 5 wounds, it looks like. And after the Chimera was destroyed, I was able to survive with 3 Catachan models. So yes, they do have to take Battle Shock next turn, but as long as they're not Battle Shocked, I am able to out OC his Raptors, because the Raptors, I think they only have 1 OC, but even if he has two, he only has 2 models on that objective right now. So I'm not really worried about that. I know I have the bottom objective, the top objective, and the middle objective. So I started moving. So what I did was I put ratlings in reserve. So I brought my ratlings down on the top objective to start, doing something in the game. The Since my Chimera was tagged in melee, the Ogryns got out next to the Chimera and just started moving around so they could start charging and tying things up because they are pretty durable. My Rogal Dorn commander, he gets the 4-up invul from the Tech Priest, and he comes out to just blast the enemy off the board. And then Gaunt's Ghost and the Catachans that were hiding behind the ruin finally come out to start OC dumping on that middle objective. Reason why is because a Forge Fiend might be able to clear out Gaunt's Ghost. They might be able to clear out my Catachans, but there's no way the Forge Fiend is gonna clear out both units. And then here you could see that after the fight phase, that Chimera is destroyed, but I did charge my Ogryns into that Lord Discordant on top. Literally, I'm just trying to pull him back to his own deployment zone, and just prevent him from getting onto that top left objective where I have literally one ratling, putting one OC on that objective. And so my Ogryns charge behind the Lord Discordant, and I picked up his Vindicator, and I believe I picked up a couple of his characters in the shooting phase. And his Forge Fiend is gone too. And my Dorn, he pretty much fires all his weapons he possibly could into the into Vashtor and destroyed Vashtor. Coming up to the last battle round that we played, um, he finally pushes his Mauler Fiend up on into my Rogal Dorn, which is still living on one wound, miraculously. My Hellhound had pushed up onto that objective. His bikers had come out. Now, mind you, this is his natural expansion objective. So, I've been keeping it off of him for most of the game, and I've been holding my natural, which the Rogal Dorn just shifts up and he pretty much secures my natural. The Ogryns are still alive. I think I destroyed his Lord Discordant, and I'm tying up his last Forge Fiend up there with the Ogryns. The Ogryns are just straight move blocking him because he doesn't have enough move to get past the Ogryns. And so his mistake was bikers. He should have pushed him out at least 2 turns earlier. And his Forge Fiend, when the other Forge Fiend came out, he should have just brought out his other Forge Fiend as well. So he kind of just like that Imperial Knights player, he was being way too passive in this game. He should have shoved. He should have shoved like I did. If he wanted a chance to win the game. And so yeah, at the end I got 94 points and he got 44. So moving on to round 5 of the tournament, my 5th game, I played up against Kastner Pernice playing Chaos Knights in the Lords of Dread detachment, and his list had 1,985 points. We were playing the Linchpin mission on Search and Destroy deployment, which are the table corners, and we were playing GW Terrain Layout 1. This was a very, very tight and sweaty game. And it was literally down to 2 points at the end. We got to round 4 when the time ran out. And I didn't get a full round 4, so we were talking it out. And I pulled a location-based secondary, and I also pulled no prisoners. And it was literally down to whether I could destroy an War Dog Executioner on 4 wounds. And Kastner, being the good sportsman, an excellent opponent he was, he told the TO, hey, I'm actually planning on dropping out of the tournament anyway because I have to go to work. And so you can just give him no prisoners. And that's pretty much the why I won this game. Otherwise, I would have lost. So his list was Night Castigator, and that gives an aura of sustain. And that's why he also brought 3 War Dog Executioners, which are the double autocannon ones, which are the Armiger Helverin in Imperial Knights, with the Diabolus Heavy Stubbers as his carapace option. He had a Knight Desecrator, which is a knight with the hand and the big railgun. And I'm really glad in my list building that I brought a regular Rogal Dorn with a blank and a Tech Priest Engine Seer that gives a 4-up invul, because that railgun doesn't have a lot of shots. And so having the blank and the 4-up means that if I fail a 4-up, I can still CP reroll it and have a decent chance to prevent any damage. Because if I get hit by even one of those attacks, then it could do a lot of damage to one of my tanks. He also had a Knight Tyrant with the Dark Flame Cannon and the Warp Shock Harpoon. The Dark Flame Cannon is the Torrent weapon that's Strength 8, and the Warp Shock Harpoon is the Strength 24 anti-vehicle. Pretty much a short-range railgun. And generally, this Knight is not that good with this loadout, but in Lords of Dread detachment, he has access to an enhancement called Warpborn Stalker, which can give the Knight Tyrant Deep Strike. And in Search and Destroy, on GW Terrain Layout 1, this actually happens to be an excellent list building choice. And lastly, he had 3 Wardog Brigands with Havoc multi-launchers, and the Wardog Brigand has the Melta on one arm and the Gatling on the other arm, and the Havoc multi-launchers are essentially indirect firing mortars that the Knights have access to. So the first photo here is of the opponent's turn 1, the start of turn 1, and this is the deployment. You will see that I am missing tanks, and the reason why is the night before, I called my buddy up in Canada, Jin Singh. Thank you, Jin, for giving me advice, and shout out to him. He's an excellent Questor Forge Pack player. And he plays Imperial Knights, so that's a vehicle heavy army, and my list happens to be vehicle heavy. So I called him and asked, hey, in search and destroy deployment, what do I have to do to prevent getting traffic jammed? And he said, if I were you, I would reserve a Rogal Dorn commander so that when you bring him out of reserves, he can give an order. That was a great idea, and it kind of went well, except for a mistake I made. But I also reserved a Chimera with Ogryns embarked because there was no place that I could deploy it well without getting traffic jammed and without it being relevant. And I think that was an excellent decision, as you'll see later in the game. So my next photo is kind of later in the game, and I completely neglected taking photos for my turn 1 and my opponent's turn 2. So essentially, I'll walk you through what happened. I pushed out my Chimera on the bottom side over to the enemy's natural expansion objective, and on his turn, he destroyed my Chimera, and that's why I have a bunch of infantry in range of the opponent's natural expansion objective marker. And as you can see here, one of the reasons why we ran out of time was that neither of us had the neoprene objective mats, and I tried to go borrow some from the judges, but they didn't have enough to go around at this event. So even though I got to use it from one of my past games, they didn't have it, and so we had to use these little tokens in place of objective markers, and that slows down the game a bit because you have to measure within 3 inches of it to score primary and secondary, and that really slows down the game a lot. So that was one of the reasons why it took a little longer than expected. But essentially, what he did was that he pushed his Knight Desecrator out to the middle to put OC on that objective, and he shoved his Knight Castigator with a bunch of War Dogs in his aura into the natural staging area on GW Terrain Layout 1. And one stupid thing that I did that it may or may not have been a good idea, but I don't have a lot of experience on this map, and so I wanted to try out something that I heard you could do. And I infiltrated Gaunt's Ghost so that on my turn 1, I could use a stratagem, and I had to pay a CP to sticky my natural expansion objective and walk off of it. And that's what I did, but looking back, it might have been a waste of CP because the enemy pretty much took that objective off of me. I might have scored it once, but he took it off of me pretty quickly. What I did was I pushed out my Leman Russ Exterminator on turn 1 to fire at one of his War Dogs that he deployed exposed, and I kind of started slowly moving my tanks over to his natural expansion objective. I figured if I am able to keep his knights, his Castigator Castle in place, then I can drop down my Rogal Dorn commander on the bottom right, which in my turn 2, you can see that I did. I dropped down my Rogal Dorn commander, and the opponent rapid ingressed a Knight Tyrant, essentially taking that objective off of me. So now he's scoring my natural expansion objective. And you could see that these Catachan have duty and honor. And the reason why is that on my turn 2, I flipped the opponent's natural expansion objective off of him onto me. So I scored that. So this was kind of a backwards game where I was taking his natural, he was taking my natural. And you can see in the top right, I brought down Gaunt's Ghost and I brought my Chimera with Ogryns out of reserve. I believe I pulled behind enemy lines, which is why I brought 2 units into his deployment zone. And in my turn, what I did was I pushed that Leman Russ exterminator that I poked out of my deployment ruins, and I just shoved to the midboard because the enemy had a Night Desecrator there, and my thoughts were I have to destroy that Night Desecrator and take him off that objective so that I can deny him and swarm me off the middle. And one of my goals for this round was also to destroy that Night Castigator. And by the end of my turn 2, I completely failed. So you can see that my Leman Russ Exterminator is in melee with that Night Desecrator. And the reason I did that was because I wanted to get 3 OC onto that objective. So when I destroyed him, I would have 3 OC on that objective. I also have a Hellhound that has OC on that objective as well. And so I wanted to make sure that I'm securing that middle for myself and not the opponent. And what I did was I fired my Leman Russ Exterminator, the white one in the middle, and I fired my Hellhound and my Rogal Dorn at the Night Desecrator and failed to kill him. I whiffed completely. And so I charged my Leman Russ Exterminator in to tank shock, and I still failed to take out that Night Desecrator, which was a very sad experience. But I felt like I could do it because my Leman Russ Exterminator had a 4-up invul from the Engine Seer that I gave it, and so on the clapback, it would survive the melee attack. And you can see that the Night Desecrator is missing an arm. It's because my tanks had so much firepower that I blew his arm off. And that's a joke. Later, after the game, I actually heard that Kastner Pernice is a Crusade narrative player. So I think that in the spirit of Narrative Crusade, it was kind of cool that the arm got taken off. But to be honest, the real reason why the arm is off is because the arm was getting in the way of ruins and making it kind of difficult to play. And so he just removed the arm because his knights were magnetized. But I think for a more narrative explanation is my tanks put a lot of firepower and ended up blowing his arm off, but didn't fully destroy that knight. But at least I have OC on that objective for now. And on the bottom right, you can see that I screwed up. My Leman Russ Exterminator could have moved a couple more inches to the right. And when my Rogal Dorn came down, then he could have ordered my Leman Russ Exterminator. Now, in this game, it didn't matter because both tanks firing on that Night Castigator, I still left him on 12 wounds. I completely whiffed. I believe I even grenaded with my Catachans, I believe. But I failed to take out the Night Castigator. I failed to even bracket it. But it was a big mistake because I believe that I measured wrong and I thought my Rogal Dorn could have come in a little bit closer than I thought he could have. And so that's why I moved my exterminator not appropriately. If I had moved my exterminator to the right a couple of inches, I could have at least bracketed that Night Castigator and maybe maybe it would have helped me later on in the opponent's clapback. So the enemy, he rapid ingressed his Knight Tyrant on the top left, and on his turn, he walked out that Knight Tyrant, towed onto the objective footprint so he could fire over it with the towering rule, and fire at my command squad that's holding down my home objective. Now, do note that Cadians do have sticky, so I already stickied my home objective, and he's not going to take it off of me this turn at least. And you can see that on the opponent's turn, since the Night Desecrator was already tied up in combat, he was not able to move it. And so I believe he shot into combat and destroyed my Leman Russ Exterminator. And he had a War Dog there next to him as well. And he did some damage to my Rogal Dorn and his castigator moved out so that he could get a very close charge onto my Rogal Dorn commander. And you can see from the next photo that after the shooting phase, he completely wiped out my command squad. And so, since my command squad is completely wiped out, he can't really get onto objective this turn. So, I know that I'm going to be scoring that on my turn, at least for one more turn. And eventually, when you see the photo of the start of my turn 3, the Knight Castigator goes into my Rogal Commander, fails to kill it, leaves it on 6 wounds. And his War Dog Executioner on the top right that's protecting his home comes back and double charges Gaunt's Ghost and my Chimera. He destroys some of my ghosts, and eventually, for the rest of the game, we're just sitting there shooting at each other into combat, which is better for the opponent because that means that I'm not stealing his home objective, which he has stickied as well, as per his detachment. And so, at the start of my turn 3, this is the board state, and Rogal my regular Rogal Dorn actually was down to 8 wounds, but on my command phase, I used the Tech Priest Engine Seer to give it a 4-up save, which will help in the future. And he repaired him 2 wounds so that my Rogal Dorn is now back to 10 wounds. And I whiffed really hard last turn, but thankfully, bless the Omnissiah, and the High Lords of Terra, and the God Emperor of all mankind, this turn I finally did it. By the end of my turn 3, I wiped out his Knight Castigator, left that War Dog right in front of my Leman Russ Exterminator on 4 wounds, and my Gaunt's Ghost fell back so that even though they couldn't up B Downy last turn, maybe this turn they can up B Downy. And that was a good decision, as you'll see. And my Hellhound and my Rogal Dorn have pushed into that middle objective. So on my turn, what actually happened was that my Hellhound was on full wounds, and I just dumped into that Night Desecrator, and that Night Desecrator blew up. I think I fired a Hunter Killer missile and some other stuff at one of the other War Dogs as well, but that Night Desecrator had an amazing blow up. He left my Hellhound on 4 wounds, and he completely wiped out what was left of his other War Dog, and that other War Dog that I may have fired at also died. So that Night Desecrator finally blowing up, it did it in for the opponent, and I got that middle objective. That middle objective is completely secured by me, and the opponent's natural expansion objective is also secured by me. I got 5 Catachans, 5 Ratlings, a full health Leman Russ Exterminator, and a Rogal Dorn Commander left on 6 wounds. And that is very blessed. And this is the final picture that I have. So going into turn 4, what the opponent does is he walks over the wall with his Knight Tyrant, takes my home objective away from me, and I believe he takes out my regular Dorn that turn. I believe he does. And his War Dog is just firing into my Chimera, doesn't really do much. And I don't remember what his other War Dog does, but he didn't really do much either with the other War Dog. And then it came over to my turn 4, and my turn 4, what happened was my Gaunt's Ghost uppy downy, and the TO came over, like I said earlier, and said, roll your battle shocks. And then it was down to whether I could destroy that War Dog left on 4 wounds. If I destroyed that War Dog, I would secure the 2 points that I need to win the game by 1 point. If I didn't get no prisoners, then I would not get that 2 points. And I would lose by 1 point. And that's when the absolute Chad, Kastner, is like, I'm going home. He can have no prisoners. And so I won by 1 point. But it was a very sweaty, very exciting, and very thematically cool battle. I always love playing into Knights because it's like it's a challenge, you know, taking down a big knight is a challenge, and especially with all those war dogs just swarming across the board, it's very challenging playing into knights. I know some people say guard is really good into knights, but from my experience, okay, the Imperial Knights 5 big list, sure, you know, it might be a decent matchup because they don't have as many assets. But this list in particular was actually very, very well tailored for this particular deployment, I think. And Kastner, he played well. He was an excellent opponent, and he made a lot of good in-game decisions. But overall, I think this was a really weird game. I had never reserved a Rogal Dorn commander before, and I also had never tried using the sticky objective stratagem before. So it was a lot of trying out new stuff, but it really was a bummer that I whiffed into the Night Desecrator and the Night Castigator, and I did make a mistake with not being able to order my Leman Russ Exterminator one of the turns. But it was a blessing that I got to take out the Night Castigator and that I made the Desecrator blow up as well. Because that blow up, him blowing up into his War Dogs, that made a huge difference in the game. So, you know, even if you're losing, don't give up because crazy things like that could happen and you could wipe out a flank just with some good rolls and some bad rolls. So anyway, that's the end of round 5, and now we're gonna move on to round 6. So my last game was against Jarek Turner, and he was playing Dark Angels Wrath of the Rock with 1,995 points. I won this 100 to 47, and I did go second in this game. Um, Thank you to Jarek as well. He was a great opponent. On battle round 3, he pretty much conceded, but he said, we can just keep playing it out. And, you know, he pretty much said, I'm going to coach you to score maximum on your game. And so that's what he did. Pretty much on round 3, we just kind of um, we went very quickly this game. He actually had a chess clock, and we went quite quickly this game. Um, but you know, we were done with battle round 5. Um, I think 40 minutes ahead of time, and so that was really interesting. But anyway, he was playing I would say a little bit less competitive list. He played Azrael, Chaplain and Terminator armor with enhancement Deathwing Assault. I don't remember what that enhancement is. He played Lieutenant with combi weapon. He had Lionel Johnson, 5 intercessors, 5 Deathwing Knights, 3 Inceptors, 6 Inner Circle companions. So that's pretty typical in a competitive Dark Angels list. But he also brought 2 Landspeeder Vengeances, 2 units of 6 Ravenwing Black Knights, a Scout Squad, and a Stormspeeder Thunderstrike. So most people I've played playing Dark Angels usually bring 2 units of 5 Deathwing Knights, and they're both led by leaders. And so the fact that he had 1 unit of Deathwing Knights kind of meant that he had a little bit less durability in that midboard. And he did have 2 Land Speeders and 1 Storm Speeder, and they're useful utility pieces, but against guard shooting, they're not particularly durable. So pretty much the first battle round, um, he pushed his units, so he was playing a little bit more of a jail style list, and so he pushed his bikes up. And you remember the previous game, one of the previous games where the opponent was playing Chaos Space Marines. What he should have done was how Jarek was playing. He should have brought his bikes out. First thing first, he should have just yeeted his bikes out as fast as possible and staged them behind that ruin. That way, he has opportunities to at least try to deny me on the center and on the bottom objective. And so he pushed a lot of his units out very quickly. He brought his Inceptors out fairly quickly, and what I did was I also went very aggressively. I brought out my Chimera. I brought out all 3 Chimeras, at least towing the objective, and then I kept my Rogal Commander back. I kept my regular Dorn back, and I brought out my Leman Russ exterminators. The one on top, he's staged and ready to fire down the bottom, on that diagonal from the top left to the bottom right, or to support the Chimera and Ogryns on the top there. And the other Leman Russ exterminator was on the bottom here, also ready to fire through the middle or towards the bottom right here. And you can't see him, but Lionel Johnson and I believe the Inner Circle companions are behind the bottom right ruin right there. And so what happens next is that I end up destroying. So you can't see some of his other bikes, but what happened was he pushed the bikes um across the top very aggressively. But since he did that, he actually did come within range of Overwatch for my Rogal Dorn commander. And between that and my shooting phase, I was able to take out all the bikers on the top side. And so he doesn't really have a lot of material on the top side here. And then what happened was that I actually took out his inceptors on the bottom, and when his bikes came out, um I destroyed his bikes very readily as well, since they have 3 wounds and I have very high volume of damage 3 shots. And so he did destroy my chimeras in the bottom right and the middle, and I spilled out my catachans onto the bottom objective, putting a ton of OC on it, and then I spilled my Ogryns away from the bottom objective. I think I did that so they wouldn't get charged by the Deathwing Knights. I think. But anyway, this was a board state, and then I had a lot of my infantry start moving towards my natural expansion to just early OC dump it. And then I put a Leman Russ exterminator fully within that ruin, and we determined ahead of time that from this ruin, he could fire out of that ruin since he was fully within that ruin. So if he had true line of sight, since he is fully within that ruin, he could fire out of it. And so what Jarek did was he brought out his inner circle companions and Lionel Johnson. Um, I think that was a really bad move. Um, but I'll show you next that he actually picked up all my catachans and he picked up my Leman Russ exterminator. But it was a bad move because that's exactly what I wanted him to do. This is his natural expansion objective, and there's no need for me to control all 3 objectives. Uh, that would be overkill, and I would be spreading out my resources way too much. What I really want him to do is push out past his objective and then hit my Dorn, my regular Dorn. That way, the next turn, my Rogal Dorn commander can actually just slide down, stick his barrel out of the ruins right there. That's a small ruin. He could stick his barrel out, and then he could start firing on whatever gets into that firing lane. And the opponent did exactly that. So this is looking good for me. He pushes his Deathwing Knights onto that middle objective, putting a ton of OC and denying me from grabbing it. And that's his lieutenant with a combi weapon sitting right behind that ruin there. So he did come, and he rolled a little bit too low on his charge, so he couldn't go all the way out to wrap my Leman Russ, and he was only able to fight with part of his Deathwing squad. And in his charge phase, um, the Azrael and the Inner Circle companions actually did tag my Rogal Dorn, but like I said, that's exactly what I want to have happen. So next turn, when it comes over to my turn, what I do is what I just told you. That top objective, I believe I still have a unit of infantry. It's hard to see, but they're crowded behind my Leman Russ on that objective. So I hold my natural expansion on the top left. I pushed out my Chimera aggressively, dropped off my Ogryns. That way they do have line of sight against Lieutenant with a combi weapon, and they also have line of sight on the Storm Speeders. or the land speeders or whatever they're called in the near the middle there. And I push out my Hellhound aggressively, and I put my Rogal Dorn commander to start firing um, towards the bottom right of the map. And my Ogryns, so my Leman Russ falls back, and my Ogryns come in to start contesting the objective against the Deathwing Knights. I don't think that I tag the Deathwing Knights, so I just walk up 1 inches away from them. That way I can shoot at them and try to kill them because the Ogryns each have one OC. The Deathwing Knights also have one OC each. This leader might have had the banner that gives him 2 OC. But my intention was pretty much wipe that Deathwing squad with all my tanks and secure my natural expansion and the middle objective, and also be in a position when Lionel Johnson and the Inner Circle companions with Azrael start pushing through my Rogal Dorn that's acting as a wall right there at the bottom. Then they can pretty much swing down and shoot at them as well. And so at this point, this is when Jarek pretty much says, "Hey, um, I think I lost the game, so I'm just gonna give you the game." He was essentially pretty much just trying to coach me so that I could get maximum on my primaries because after this turn he was pretty much tabled. So what happened was that I used grenades with my Ogryns against one of his storm speeders that were damaged, and then I believe they shot and killed the lieutenant with combi weapon, and I destroyed the whole Deathwing brick right there, and I think so. What I did with my regular Dorn was I fired all my weapons at Lionel Johnson because I played some practice games against Dark Angels before. I played a lot of games against Space Wolves and Dark Angels especially. And so I was terrified of Lionel Johnson. He will delete any tank he touches in one shot. Like Lionel Johnson he's a freak in melee. And so I was terrified of this guy. He also has a 2-up base save with a 3-up invul save. So he's very tanky. So I fired everything expecting to kill Lionel Johnson, but I was tagged in melee, -1 to hit, and he survived on 2 wounds. And at this point, pretty much I was pretty confident that I was going to win the game as well. And so it was my mission, it was my goal that by the end of the game, I will destroy Lionel Johnson. Moving on to the opponent's round, what he did was he picked up Lionel Johnson. He can up B Downy with his ability, and he moved one of his storm speeders forward, and he has a unit of intercessors on his home objective. And so this is his move, and when Lion came down, you can't see him, but he's right behind that ruin. When he dropped down there, I overwatched him.
Lionel Johnson is around the corner. Let's see if Gaunt's ghost can kill him on the Overwatch. He has 2 wounds. That would be really badass. Last time
they make the 9-inch charge, so
this is the auto cannon shooting. Rerolling 1s, hitting on 6s. I got 2 6s. I am not cheating. This is not loaded dice. All right, he's 9 versus 9, right? So 4 is to wound. Oh, wait. I only have 1 CP. So take 1 at AP -1.
AP -1 covers, so 2 up. Save it.
Oh, he saved it. Now, the bolt pistol.
There's nothing you can do about it.
Nothing. The last guns. I'm just gonna roll them all at once. 9 last gun shots. On 6s. Ooh, 1 last gun shot. He saved it. The sniper. Let's see if the sniper can one-shot him. No.
Yeah, I overwatched him and I failed to kill him in Overwatch. So then my turn came around and I deleted his land speeder and I had engage on all fronts, which is why my Chimera moved on to into that area on the top right. He wanted to score maximum engage on all fronts, and so I did score that. My Hellhound here, I think he's scoring engage on all fronts as well. I fell back with my Rogal Dorn, and then I pushed up my Rogal Dorn commander to finish off Azrael's squad. And at this point, I hold all the No Man's Land objectives and my home. And now we're gonna get to the most fun part of the tournament, the highlight, where I finally get to kill Lionel Johnson for the first time in my life.
These are the absolute heroes, the Valhallan Ice Warriors. They're being proxied as Katachan, and I'm gonna grenade Lionel Johnson. Gaunt's Ghost didn't do it on the Overwatch when he declared charge, so let's see if he can kill the lion. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
He's dead.
5 No, he has still no ping?
Nope.
Why not?
Because I didn't turn it on. I
Oh.
down, he didn't reroll.
So lion is dead. Does he explode? He's a monster.
No, it doesn't explode.
So all in all, um, I went 4-2 at the GT, and I learned a lot. For future games, I will be getting a chess clock, hopefully. But in case I don't, like it doesn't arrive on time or something, um, or it breaks, then, I have a strategy to play against people who don't have a chess clock. I believe that my the game against Space Wolves and both of the games against the Knights, we did not finish the game. I only finished the first game, the Soulforge Warpack game, and my final game. I only finished those three games on time. And it was because it was either a loss or a victory very decisively. The games with the Knights, um, it wasn't as decisive because I should have been a little bit more aggressive against them. That way I could pull forward on my primary points. And the game against Space Wolves, we didn't finish, but I did play that one correctly. So, all in all, thank you to Smite Club. Thank you to a special shout out to Justin Alexander, who plays Admech. He used to play Eldar, but he plays Admech and he's part of Making Saves team. He's on Discord with one of the local teams, the Inner Circle. And thanks to him, because I had a pretty bad list before the event, but he kind of gave me some recommendations. And it kind of pushed me towards not trying to make meta units like Vanquishers and Khazar work, but playing a list that I'm more comfortable with, that I understand a lot better. Even about a year ago, when I was trying out the Doomhammer and a bunch of other crap, I was trying out Ogryns before Grizzled Company came out. I had a pretty bad time running some of my units that I tested. Like I just couldn't figure it out. And so Justin was like, just go to Ogryns. You know how to play Ogryns. I just play Ogryns. You know what I mean? And he played and he told me about that about a year ago. And then this time around, um, my Vanquishers, they weren't really doing anything in my games. And he said, why don't you just add another exterminator? And I told him, well, I don't have an exterminator, but Smite Club does allow proxies, and so I hit up one of my guys in North Phoenix, and he had an exterminator turret, like a custom made one. He made it in like 2 days. He was really quick about it. He made it in like 2 days, and I had already submitted my list with an extra exterminator at that point. So I'm very blessed to have people like that in my community who give me advice and who are very reliable and quick with their commissioning services. And so, thank you to Rowan, who made my exterminator turret, like, you know, pretty much a day before the event. And thank you to Justin Alexander for helping me build a much better list than what I was playing when I was trying to test for the GT. And of course, thank you to the TOs who were very helpful during the game, especially with lending us some objective mats and helping us deal with some BCP issues, as well as, uh, other things they helped us with. So thank you to the Smite Club members, and thank you to Gamers Guild for having an amazing uh like a member space where I can record games and I can edit the videos there so that I can produce content like this. So shout out to Gamers Guild Tempe. You guys are awesome. And you know, shout out to Ben Jurek too. I got to meet him. Absolutely cool guy. And thank you to Mark Whitaker and all the other people who came out to the event, who also run their own events and run leagues as well. Thank you to Jason Flanzer, who runs the local RTTs. I haven't been able to make it to some of your tournaments on time, but I did play in some of his smaller events in the past, and he's a cool guy as well. So again, thank you all to you viewers as well for watching this very extended video. And if you have any comments, any tactical advice, or any list building ideas, then let me know in the comments section below. If you have also played the Ogryn bangbus and use AP boosting combos as well, also let me know in the comments. This is the only playstyle that I can actually play competitively right now. This is the only playstyle I know how to play. I still haven't figured out how to use the other Leman Russes effectively yet. So for all the newer players who are watching this, I hope that you have great success at your next GT or RTT, any timed event for that matter. And you know, hopefully you learned something from this video. If you have any specific type of content that you'd like to see, then feel free to drop a request in the comments section. I do make math videos, deployment videos, just all kinds of stuff, mainly focusing on Guard and Imperial Knights. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you guys will I hope 11th edition, that's right around the corner, will be leading to some nice changes to guard. I hope they keep Grizzled Company. I hate running Sentinels. I just don't like the look. So I hope they keep something like Grizzled Company that you can run tank spam or infantry spam and not have to run walkers, which I personally don't like. I think walkers belong in the knights section. I don't think walkers belong with Imperial Guard. So anyway, again, always praise the machine god. Play your tech priest engine seers, so they could bless your vehicles. Thrice blessed with the holy oils. And see you all next time.
To the god of all machines, to the god of all machines. His sacred designs are astral